Truth be told, I was originally planning on skipping Metal Cardbot Gigantrex. It's not that I don't think he looked cool, because he does, and it's not because he has knee swivels instead of thigh swivels, even though that does bug me. It's not even because of the comically huge card accessory that it's really less a card than the foundation of a skyscraper. Look at this thing, it's like literally a brick, like the size of an actual brick. It's actually because at first I had this thing pegged as a retool of heavy iron, which I already own. At first glance, I feel like this is a fairly easy mistake to make. Both robots turn into tractor-trailer trucks, and in both cases, the arms and legs parts form to become the trailer while the head and torso become the cab. They're both also big, bulky bots with an obnoxious lack of a thigh swivel. So yeah, I initially thought this was just heavy iron in red with a ridiculous metaphor for overcompensation as an accessory. Of course, I was super wrong. Gigantrex is a completely new figure that doesn't share any engineering with heavy iron, except maybe for some knee swivels and an excess of bulk compared to other metal cardbot figures. And I'm glad I was wrong, because this guy is really neat. He's fun to transform and pose, he looks really cool, and because he's not just Heavy Iron 2.0, I get to keep both of them, and wow, do they look great standing next to each other. It'd also be cool if you could give Gigantrex Heavy Iron's chest shield, but meh. Despite the similar, but very loosely similar transformations on Gigantrex versus Heavy Iron, the truck mode is way more cohesive on Gigantrex. Yeah, the cabs are comparable, but Gigantrex's trailer is way more visually solid. There's just enough color separation between the black and gray, while the red stripe along the side keeps the gray from becoming boring. They've even got a pair of opening doors on the back, which be a little... here we go. I'm from the underside here. So yeah, you've got opening doors on the back, which is a neat touch, but it's also kind of weird because this looks like a trailer meant to haul liquid cargo, like fuel or something. And I don't think I've ever seen a trailer like that that has opening doors on the back. Also, the doors don't really serve a purpose anyway, because there's not a whole lot of empty space in the trailer. Definitely not enough for the card. Not even Heavy Iron's card fits in there, because there's like stuff in there that gets in the way. So like, yeah, you can't really store anything in there. It seems kind of pointless. And speaking of card accessories, yeah, the card accessories are still annoying to deal with in alt mode. I'm sure there's some sort of reasoning behind this decision, but it's continued to bug me how none of the metal cardbot figures I've owned so far, or even seen videos of, give you a way to store the card accessory in vehicle mode. They don't even give you a way to store just the card in robot mode. In Gigantrex's case, it's even worse, because look at this thing. Even folded up, it's almost the size and bulk of a typical deluxe, and I say almost the bulk because this is actually bulkier and heavier. I was not kidding when I said this is almost the size of an actual brick, like the kind used in masonry. And what even is this sad attempt at hiding the accessory behind the card? Like, I guess if you're looking at it from straight on, the illusion almost works, but from any other perspective, it's kind of hilarious. Getting back to the alt mode, it does the typical metal cardbot thing where there are some prominent go-onger-looking eyes right up front. Except these eyes look angrier than usual. Maybe it's because Gigantrex is supposed to be an antagonist? I'm not actually guessing here. I looked it up because I wanted to make sure I was using the right pronouns, and the wiki mentions it. The rest of the cab looks pretty good, with nice separation using different plastics and some paints. I really like this shade of orange that they used on both the cab and the trailer. It complements the red and black really nicely. If you look at it from the front, it is a little weird how the sides of the cab curve out a little bit. Makes it seem like it might be mistransformed or misaligned or something, but no, that's just how it looks. It's a style thing that I think they went with because of the robot mode, but it looks a little weird. It's fine. It just looks a little weird. And of course, Gigantrex is a big figure. The cab section alone is bigger than your average Transformers Deluxe. I kept tripping over those words. I don't understand why. Well, the cab with the trailer practically comes off looking like a commander. It's par for the course when it comes to these kinds of toys, sure, but it's never not impressive to me. Okay, before we turn Gigantrex into a robot, and anyone familiar with Heavy Iron sees that this is definitely not that same figure, I've got a Ko-fi, I've got a Patreon, links to both at the end of the description, or at the end of the video rather, as well as down in the description if you want to support the channel. Otherwise, typical YouTube stuff of like, comment, share, subscribe. That also helps. So, transforming this guy. I am going to deviate from what I've seen in videos and the instructions, I believe the instructions a little bit, just for the ease of doing stuff. I'll explain when I get there in more detail, but yeah, we're just going to disconnect the cab, put that off to the side for now, and start with the trailer so that we have all of the body bits ready to go. Now, I'm going to leave the trailer hitch out because I want to point out one pretty important difference between Gigantrex and Heavy Iron. But to start, going to pull up on these little red bits to unclip them from down here, because there's actually these clips here, or these clips here that these go into. So this comes around and that just like covers up the obvious fists. And before this does collapse down, but before collapsing it down all the way, I'm actually going to split this open first because I find it's actually easier to use these bits as leverage when it's like this. Because when it's collapsed down all the way, it's a lot harder to disconnect everything. So I'm going to unclip this section here down the middle, and then separate this down the middle. There we go. Now this can collapse all the way down. These fold out, and the doors fold in and lay flat along the insides of these sections here. And now the arms can pop out of here, like so. Something I've noticed with these arms, the clip that holds them together is strong enough that they're not going to just fall apart, but when I first got this guy, my inclination was to grab this mass from up here, and doing that immediately separates the arms because they want to go like this, and it doesn't take much for that to just pop out. So grab from like around the middle part of these gray bits, but going to split this apart, and these are the arms. That's all you have to do to transform the arms. Very simple. For the rest of the lower body, going to rotate the waist section back, and this is why I kept the trailer hitch out, to show that this is the front of the robot mode, this is the back. So they learned from Heavy Iron and did not put the trailer hitch in an inappropriate place, or at least a less inappropriate place. Anyway, going to fold down the toes. And then one of the reasons I like to fold down the toes is because separating the legs is surprisingly difficult. The clips, in particular down here, hold really well. So I like to use the feet as leverage and just kind of pull. See, it's really, really in there. Come on, there we go. Yeah, they hold a little too well. But anyway, separate the legs. And now these bits here will swing down on this hinge and swing around. And you might be tempted to just kind of plug them into the side here and be done. But what you actually want to do is you plug them into the side, and then around back here, there's also this little, let's zoom in here. There's this little peg hole here, and this little peg here. So when you bring this around, you want to plug this. You want to plug this into here, absolutely. And there's also one up here. So you want to peg all that together. But once you get that plugged in, you also want to make sure to push this in towards the front. And that will keep this gigantic panel nice and secure. So again, swing it back, plug it into the sides, and then just give it more of a squeeze down around here going this way. And I don't think the instructions say to do this, but it's something I like to do, is I take these black pieces here and just rotate them down so that it frees up the thighs a little bit. And that's the pants. A little bit more involved than than Heavy Iron, huh? Okay. Now, the truck cab. Something that the instructions, I believe the instructions anyway, I haven't looked at them in a minute, but I'm pretty sure they were in there. And also the videos that I've seen have you transforming the cab first and then attaching it to the pants. That is fine, you can do that, but it is a little bit awkward because of the way things have to slot together. So I find it's actually way easier to attach the cab first, then transform it. So what you want to do, and this is actually really cool, you flip this down. This isn't the cool part. You flip this down, and then you take the cab, and what you may not have noticed is the entire grill section of the cab is the waist. This is the connector that plugs into the lower body. So you take this and line it up and slide it in and keep pushing, and it will click. And that's clicked in place. That is the waist, and now it can actually like rotate and stuff. What I've seen people do is transform it and then rotate this 90 degrees so that it can slide into place and then rotate it around. And you can do that, but I find it's easier, smoother, I guess, to just slot the cab in first. Anyway, close this back up, and now that's all attached. And for the rest of the upper body, this is probably, you can probably tell how most of this is going to go. Basically, what you want to do is you want to split this section. Actually, no, what you want to do first is take this top section and slide it down, and it clicks up and it clicks down. So you want to slide it down and click it, and that kind of hides the eyes a little bit better. That'll give you the space you need to split this section down the middle. It's a little intricate, but basically, before bringing what is obviously the shoulders down, you have to unclip them and bring down this section first, because there are these little tabs here that have to tab into these spots on the inside. So when you're going back into vehicle mode, you want to bring the shoulders up, then you want to bring them up and not clip them together, then bring this up and have that in place. And once that's in place, then you click them together, and that locks everything together. Because you can see this does not want to come out now that this is pegged in. So you want to pop these apart, but don't bring them down, then bring this down, then you can bring these down. It's weird, but it works. And then rotate these forward. And then finally, pull up this panel, hinge all of this down, and this will plug in back here. But another thing you want to look out for is there's this little tab at the front of the plate that the head sits on that'll actually tuck right in here in this little spot behind the chest plate. So when you bring this in, you want to make sure that that tab is down. So just push down on the head and then slide it forward, give it a squeeze, and that locks the head panel in place. And that finishes off the torso. And yeah, this, you can kind of see why you have to rotate the waist, because if you do it like this, and we'll just slide this out so you can see, if you do it like this, transform it like this first, you can't get it in there because this whole panel is in the way. So you have to rotate it one way or the other 90 degrees, or even 180 if you want. Slide it in and then rotate it back. And like I said, I just think it makes more sense to attach the cab first and then transform it. And then finishing all this off, you just have to attach the arms. So you just put the correct arm in the appropriate place. There are posts on the back here, clips on the back here, and it all just lines up and clips in. And it holds relatively well. The problem being, if you the problem I have with this is the bicep rotation, which does have bicep rotation, is it's tight enough that if you're not careful when rotating it, especially in certain directions, you can unpeg it from the back of the arm. Like rotating it out, you can see it's kind of tight, but like rotating it out is okay. When you rotate it in, that tends to like work the connection here, and it can end up loosening that connection, and then the arm will fall off. So it's just something to be aware of. But yeah, there is Gigantrex in robot mode, and he is big. He is big and very cool. There's not a whole lot to the transformation that stands out to me other than that whole bit, but it is still nice and satisfying to do in both directions. I do like how the trailer flaps unfold to cover up the arms and then compact along the legs for robot mode. And as I said, using the truck grille as the connection point for the waist is kind of brilliant. But anyway, the robot mode. I don't think it's quite as cool looking as Heavy Iron. There, I said it. But it does still look cool. And it's definitely got way better articulation, which we'll get to later. Again, I love the shade of orange they used, and it pops really well with the black and red tones that are all over this thing. It might not contrast so well with the gray, but if you notice, the orange never really touches the gray at any point. It's always surrounded by black or sitting next to red, so you get that pop just about everywhere it appears. Really, there's a ton of color separation across the whole robot mode. It's legitimately impressive, especially for what's basically a children's toy. There isn't a single spot on this robot that I'd say looks like it needs any more color. Even the feet, just the feet, are sporting 3 different color varieties. The silhouette is definitely a bit bulky in the lower legs, but it's not distracting, and for some reason you can actually debulk them anyway? I have no idea why this is a thing, but you can actually pop the entire side panel that makes up half of the trailer roof off the rest of the leg kibble. It's literally just on this single clip. I didn't see any mention of this in the instructions, and I can't really find any other spot to peg these bits in. Like, you can clip them back together if you want, but you just have peg holes. There aren't really any pegs you can attach them to. But it's something you can do to slim up the legs if you really want, I guess. When you do detach both sides and clip them together, it almost looks like it could work as a shield, but again, there's no way to actually use it like that. But it would have been cool, because I could have seen it actually working to, like, just put it on one of these. It just doesn't work that way. And it's just, again, that single clip that holds these on. I don't understand. We do want to say I think it's kind of cool how there is black that is painted on the insides of these panels on both sides to kind of help them blend in with the leg mass a little bit better. That's pretty neat. The big panels on the forearms are nowhere near as clunky as the legs, though. And they actually serve a purpose. You can unclip them from the center and pull them apart, and they work kind of like arm-mounted bucklers. I mean, even if you don't pull them apart, they work that way. But there's also a blade you can slide out of the center, which is a little bit finicky. Like, if you slide it down to a point, it kind of gets stuck here. And what I find works is when it gets to this point, you want to grab the blade itself and kind of wiggle it side to side while you pull. Otherwise, you risk stressing that peg. But yeah, you can slide that out, give them arm blades. So now Gigantrex has 2 wrist knives. This is neat. And it sure does make the unnecessarily large accessory seem kind of redundant, huh? As for the head, if I'm being honest, it's probably my least favorite part of the toy. At least design-wise. I don't dislike it, but it doesn't really stand out to me at all, either. Like, the colors and separation are really good, the detailing is spot on, etc. I don't know. I guess I just don't think the face is very distinct. And maybe it looks a little small compared to the rest of the head. I know this isn't unique. These proportions are common for most metal Cardbots, but here it just kind of falls flat for me. Like, I know I keep comparing him to Heavy Iron, but seriously, look at Heavy Iron's head design and then look at Gigantrex again. It feels like a downgrade, right? You all have no idea how much I'm struggling off camera right now. I've got an Astrid that is in a mood. Now, I mentioned the articulation being a big improvement, and yeah, it definitely is. And now we have an Astrid. That's fine. The ball-jointed head has some really nice range, especially side to side, which is just like Heavy Iron, but unlike Heavy Iron, the shoulders can actually do more than just spin around 360. They can actually move outward to about 90. Plus, you can get at least 1 click out of the transformation joint before it clashes into the head. So you get even more range there, though you can, if you want, bring it up 1 more click, and it kind of knocks into the head. But yeah, that's well past 90 degrees of outward motion. We're just going to unplug the arm for ease here. But yes, the arms do have 90-degree elbows and honest-to-goodness bicep swivels that are a little too tight for my liking when it comes to potentially disconnecting these from the shoulder, but whatever. I mentioned the waist swivel briefly, but I really do love, I mean, I've said this several times too, but I really do love how they use the actual grill for the waist connection and swivel. It clicks around a full 360, which is super nice. And I don't know, I just think it's really cool how they designed that. The hips are hips. They're able to go forward to about 90, back to 90, go out if you get these little blocks out of the way. If these are in the way, they can only go out about that far. But yeah, if you get them out of the way, they can go out to 90, so lots of articulation there. The knees can bend up to 90. So when you bend them and then straighten them out, this panel likes to stay behind, so just something to be aware of, I suppose. But like I said before, there is regrettably no thigh swivel. Just knee swivels, like on heavy iron. It's not hateful or anything, but given how Gigantrex nails all the other articulation I'd want, I'm still disappointed. Maybe they couldn't add it because of the sculpts or these side flaps or something, I don't know. And the feet, you can use the clicks there to point the toe, or not point the toe, but bring the toe up, so you can kind of do like stepping poses, sort of, but I feel like he's not really going to balance like that, at least not with the arm out. He balances like that, at least. And then we come to this thing. This absurd thing. Honestly, I really dislike the card accessory in this card mode. It's obnoxiously big and unwieldy, and of course, there's nowhere for it to go when it's not in use. This thing is practically, like, I could use this as a display riser, it's so big. Unfolding and attaching it is simple enough, at least, and once it's on there, it is on there. You just pop off a little card, fold these flaps out, but not all the way, and bring in, it has to go on the left arm. It can't work on the other one because there are specific connection points. You've got a clip here and like a peg here, and you just don't have the right stuff on the other arm because this arm has the peg hole you need, and then the clip back here, and then on this side it has the clip, but then the side that this would potentially be clipping into, it's now facing this way, so it's just not going to work. So it has to go in the left hand. But basically, bring this in and bring the arm out more so that this is a bit easier to do. And this comes in, and this groove here goes around the big arm panel. This panel folds in and clips onto the inside of the forearm, which also, yeah, this forearm does not have a clip. It has the post there, so that's not going to work. This comes in and pegs into the forearm, as well as there's a tab here that tabs into the panel that just folded in. Then around back here, this folds in and clips into the back of the forearm. Then, if that wasn't solid enough, you fold out this gigantic center mass, bring this up, and this actually has a slot here that clips over this this little thing in the center of the panel, which the other arm has too, but this can't connect like that. This comes around, clips over that, and then this piece folds in just to kind of fill in this section and make it look a little bit less like weird. And then you can open that, and now he has this going on. It is a thing that the toy does. And then you're left with this. Now Gigantrex has a giant chomping mouth hand. Okay, yeah, this is kind of neat, but I'm still not convinced it's worth saddling the figure with an almost literal brick of an accessory. And it's also not quite as cool when you try to pose him with it attached because, as you might expect, the chompy hand is kinda heavy. The joints can absolutely handle the weight, thank goodness, but gravity and physics are a bit more persnickety. Like if we rotate this waist, okay, he's actually more stable. Like rotate that and he's okay. This is a bad example, but it is like if you don't pose this guy just so to account for the extreme weight of this thing, he's gonna face plant. Whenever I try to pose this guy with the weapon attached, I end up spending more time than I'd like just trying to find the right angle for the arms and legs so that he doesn't topple over. Again, this looks really cool, but I'm just not sure it was worth all of the other compromises. And again, plus, as I mentioned before, he has built-in wrist knives. Did they really need to give him a robotic T-Rex arm accessory when he's already equipped with two stabby things that never have to come off and sit off to the side? Okay, enough about this particular hang-up. Let's talk size. Gigantrex in robot mode is big. I know, shocking, right? I was a bit surprised the first time I put him next to Heavy Iron, though, because I expected him to be about the same size when Heavy Iron is in his stock configuration with the compressed legs. Instead, he's about as tall as Heavy Iron with the legs extended for that powered-up fan mode I mentioned in the original video. Sure, most of the height is still leg, but this isn't a fan mode. He's just that tall. Even Dinobot, who we're bringing back for a second, who is a relatively tall Voyager, barely clears his knee. Thankfully, he's not as big as most of the Korean combiners I own. I said most, so he can at least fit on a shelf with the rest of the metal Cardbots. I feel like he's big enough to satisfy and impress, but still small enough to not make me immediately regret my purchase. Ultimately, I'm glad I didn't simply write off Gigantrex as a red retool of Heavy Iron and ignore him. He is really neat and does a lot of things, particularly with articulation, that I wished Heavy Iron pulled off too. Yeah, I've complained a lot about the accessory, but that's all it is, an accessory. It's something I can leave in a parts box if I really wanted to. It's a slight annoyance, but not a big deal. It probably doesn't hurt that I managed to get him off of Gmarket for less than a modern Transformers leader, either. I'm also glad I don't have to choose between Gigantrex and Heavy Iron, because while I prefer the transformation and articulation on this guy, I do still like the look and the accessory of that other guy more. Now I guess I just have to wait and hope we get a third Metal Cardbot tractor trailer that gives us the best of both. Anyway, that does it for Metal Cardbot Gigantrex. What do you all think of this big, toothy fellow? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I think we're going to have to look at the other Metal Cardbot figure when I got this guy next time, because they're both in the same order.